guys, before we get started with this video, I want to thank Anchor for sponsoring this video. Now, I've sent out some of their wireless chargers to check out, and I'm also giving away a couple of them since they charge a bunch of Android phones as well as this year's iPhone 8, iPhone 10, and Galaxy S8. They also charge phones faster than other inexpensive wireless chargers, which is a nice bonus. But yeah, just check the link down below in the description to enter to win the giveaway and to also check out Anchor's chargers. Hey guys, how's it going? Daniel here. Today we're taking a look at the iPhone 10 and Samsung Galaxy S8. Now, right off the bat, I want to talk about build quality. Both of them feel relatively the same, mainly because they're using the same materials. They both have OLED displays. They both have glass backs to support wireless charging, and they both have brushed aluminum around the edges, which is silver on both of these devices. Now, the S8 here is Arctic silver, and it looks almost like a glass. I mean, it reflects so much, which I'm not a huge fan of. And the iPhone 8 here, or iPhone 10, basically looks like white. So yeah, that's both silver colors here on both devices. As far as the feeling on both devices go, I actually prefer the S8 just because it's a little bit thinner and it feels much slimmer in the hand. And also, I don't feel like it might fall as much. The only con to this is that it's a little bit taller than the iPhone 10, meaning it's a little bit harder to get to the top of the screen when comparing both. With that said, the iPhone 10 is a little bit wider, which makes it harder to hold and move around in the hand when compared to the S8. But then again, it's a little bit shorter, so it's going to be a little bit easier to get to the top of the screen, but a little bit harder to get from one edge to the other edge. Now, one thing I do want to mention right off the bat is that across the bottom, we do have a headphone jack on the S8 and a USB Type-C port, while on the iPhone 10, we only have a Lightning connector. This means on the iPhone 10, you're going to have to use adapters for headphones, adapters for everything, while on the S8, you at least have that connection there for headphones or microphones in case you want to record anything, which is really great. And of course, USB-C is being used by pretty much everything nowadays. So if you have a switch cable or something like that, you would only have to carry around one cable to charge all your devices, which is really nice. Well, on the iPhone 10, you might have to carry around various cables or just adapters in general to charge everything. So it's something to keep in mind because, day-to-day workflow and stuff like that, it does make a difference. And now moving on to the displays, we do have OLED displays on both devices, which just look amazing. They go super bright. They're both manufactured by Samsung, one of which is, of course, the Apple one, is completely designed and everything by Apple. And as far as which one is better, it's definitely the iPhone 10. The colors are just beautiful. Everything looks amazing on it, movies and everything. It just definitely beats out the S8. Not by a lot. I mean, the S8 screen is beautiful, but when you take it out of the box, or at least when I did back in April, I did have to tweak the display quite a bit so that it wouldn't be yellow and it would look the right temperature that I like. So that's something to keep in mind. It's just not as beautiful or as perfectly calibrated as the iPhone 10s. But both of them do look beautiful. It's just that if we are comparing both of them side by side, it's definitely the iPhone 10's display. Something to keep in mind, of course, that you might know is that the iPhone 10 has the notch at the top, which as many have mentioned is a great branding decision by Apple. I'm sure if they could have done it without the notch, they would have done it, but it actually distinguishes them from other manufacturers. So you could basically, show just the outline of the screen and people would know it's an iPhone. With that said, everything that's there is for the Face ID and, the front-facing cameras and all that. On the S8, it's all along the top, and this also does have face scanning and iris scanning. It doesn't work as well, but it does work, and it's nice that it's also an extra feature. And you also have the fingerprint sensor on the back. Now, does the notch on the iPhone 10 annoy me? No, not really. I wish it wasn't there, but it doesn't take up much of the screen, and it's not like you get used to it, but it doesn't really bother you in most cases. And I've just begun, whenever I'm watching videos or anything, I'll put my thumb on that left-hand side right there. So I'll just imagine like it was a full screen phone, and I'm just putting my thumb and I'm blocking that part of the phone. And it doesn't really bother me at all. So it's not something that would detract you from getting the iPhone 10. With that said, of course, the S8 looks beautiful with this full screen, edge to edge, and also curved edges display. It, videos are full screen. And the only thing I can talk about full screening videos is that it's much better on the iPhone 10, mainly because Apple, or just developers in general, will always update apps to accommodate Apple. While on Android, there are so many phones out there and everything that developers don't really care to update for a particular phone. So whenever you're viewing a video on YouTube, on the S8, it won't, well, sometimes it will automatically do it if it can detect the video is available to enlarge it. Other times you will have to actually press a little button or press and then press again to actually make it full screen. And then on the iPhone 10, all you have to do is just pinch in, and that's it. And that makes it much easier and much simpler. You just pinch in on whatever video you want anywhere. Now, talking about pinching and multitask features, that is something very important that I feel like Apple nailed, and Samsung kind of stayed behind a little bit, just because since they decided to build in a home button into the S8, which you have under the screen, almost like 3D touch. The problem there is they kind of got stuck halfway between two worlds. So they got stuck between the past and got stuck between the future. So whenever you go to use your phone, you're basically going to have on the S8, you're going to have two things. You're going to have either no bar across the bottom with no home button and everything. So right here, I have all my apps there, as you can see. And basically, I can just open an app and then go back home by pressing at the bottom where a home button would be. And it works perfectly fine. The only thing I don't have here is the multitasking button or the back button. So for that, I would have to drag up, click that little button to the left if I want it to stay. You know, you double tap it and it will stay. Or you could just have dragged it up for a couple of seconds and use the button and then move on, and then it will go back away. So it works, but it's not as fluid or as perfect as on the iPhone, where I basically just drag up to go home. I can drag up halfway and access the multitasking bar. It's just much more fluid and it makes much more sense with a full screen display. Home button wouldn't have made sense. A 3D home button or a 3D touch home button would have been very dumb. This works perfectly, and they really nailed it on just making everything very fluid and easy to use. The one thing that doesn't make it fluid is that whenever you face scan or unlock your phone and it detects your face on the iPhone 10, you have to drag up, which I'm not a huge fan of. I wish there was an option to make it open all by itself, because on the S8, once it detects your eyes or your face, it will actually just go ahead and unlock the phone so that you can use it. So you just look at it, it unlocks it, and you can directly use it without having to bring your hand all the way down and unlock it. So that's something to keep in mind. S8 kind of nailed it there, but everything is software. So I mean, if Samsung really did want, or Apple really did want to fix some things around or change some things, they could. Problem is that a lot of times they don't really end up doing that. With that said, on the iPhone 10, you are going to get iOS 11, while on the S8, you are going to get Android. Now, of course, if you're familiar with both devices or both softwares, you know that one is super customizable and the other one is not. So iOS is very locked down. You really can't change things around very much. You can change your wallpaper, you can move your apps around, and that's it. On the S8 or on Android in general, you can change pretty much everything about the phone. So if you don't like where the clock is, if you don't like what certain apps are, you don't like how the apps look, you can change that and move everything around, which is great. So here on my S8, I put an Eevee launcher and also changed the icons for the bottom row right here on the front of the device, which I just love the way they look like this. So I have Instagram right there, the web browser, Spotify, messages, and phone. And I just love how simple I was able to customize that. It doesn't really take that much time. However, you do have to go out of your way, find the apps, find the things that you like. So if you're not a huge fan of changing things and taking your time on changing things to the way that you like it, then of course you might like iOS more, or you could just leave it with what the S8 comes, which I don't really like, because Samsung's skin compared to what I have here is just not even close in my opinion. Now, of course, one of the huge things this year and pretty much every year is the cameras. And as we know, the Google Pixel 2 is kind of leading the pack here for cameras, but the iPhone 10 does do a better job in pretty much all cases of taking pictures and also video, with both the front and the back facing cameras. It's just got better camera tech, better features, and you can see for yourself here in the pictures that I've provided. In low lighting is where it really comes to shine, but in all cases, you can see the iPhone 10 does have some better color reproduction, and it also has the two cameras on the back so that you can zoom in a little bit without losing any video quality, both of which have optical image stabilization, which is great. And it just gives you some features like portrait mode and things like that. The S8 takes very solid pictures. You're not going to be disappointed by the pictures that it takes, just that if we're going head to head, the iPhone 10 does take better pictures. Now let's talk about apps in general. Games, you can full screen pretty much any game to try to fit onto this. You have the feature or the option to do so. Whenever you drag up to open up that little dock, you can just set any game full screen. And a lot of games do work, a lot of apps, pretty much everything works. Whenever it doesn't work, you basically just kind of break the game and you have to restart it without that on. Meanwhile, on the iPhone 10, developers are just constantly updating to meet Apple's demands or just meet consumers' demands, because basically if you go on any popular app that hasn't been updated for the iPhone 10, you'll see people lowering their reviews saying, where is the iPhone 10 update, so that it looks full screen. And developers respond to that, and a lot of the developers that develop apps have iPhones, which they personally want to update so that their apps look good. But the developers usually don't have the S8, or there's so many Android phones out there, they don't have the certain devices, so they don't end up really caring to update their apps for certain devices. So as far as support for each device, Apple is always going to be the way to go, just because the developers are always trying to keep up with Apple and want to be featured on the App Store, and so they're always constantly trying to keep their things updated and with the latest features and everything, compared to Android, which might fall behind on certain devices just because there's so many devices for developers. And at the end of the day, Samsung tries to build in things that can increase the size, while Apple doesn't do that, which forces developers to kind of update their apps. With that said, overall on the S8, I think more of the apps are full screen than I have on my iPhone 10. And just because of that, Samsung's built-in feature, which really does a good job on your traditional apps and stuff to make it full screen and make it fit the device, which is a really neat feature that Apple just didn't do. But I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. With time, everything is going to look great on both devices. And right now, I mean, you'll see some apps on the iPhone that won't be updated. You'll see black bars at the top and the bottom that'll cut off. But I haven't really minded it, especially with games. I'm just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. When developers get the time to do it, they can do it. If not, who cares? Now, as far as the main features or just simple features across the board, like battery and talking on the phone, the speaker, music, how it sounds, it's all very standard and very basic. I mean, the battery life is a whole day on both devices, and that's all I ever need. I will always charge them at night. They can go into a second day without any problem. They have really good standby times on both devices. Now, of course, on one device, we do have Apple Pay, and on the other one, Samsung Pay or Google Pay. They're both really great. They work in a lot of retailers. The one thing about Samsung, which someone had reminded me to mention a couple videos ago, is that you can use this on any terminal that doesn't have an NFC scanner. So I don't know if you sometimes go to gas stations, you see that they don't have an NFC terminal, but they do have a thing to scan your card. Well, that little slit, if you hold up the phone to that slit, it will actually kind of fake a magnetic kind of signal or whatever to the machine. It'll make it think that a card was swiped, and it will work like like your average NFC terminal, which is a really nice feature, which doesn't work with any other device aside from Samsung, because I believe they bought a company that developed that technology, which is pretty cool. Now, of course, with that said, a lot of places are adopting NFC terminals, so with time, that's not gonna really matter. So which one has the most fluid experience? It definitely has to go to the iPhone 10, mainly because I walk up to the terminal, I put it right there, and basically where the terminal is and where my face is, it already detected my face, scanned it, went through the whole transaction, and then you put the phone back in your pocket. On the S8, you actually have to pull up Samsung Pay and then go ahead and pay and scan your fingerprint on the back and then pay. It's just a couple seconds difference. It doesn't really matter, but if I had to choose which one I like better, it's definitely Apple Pay. But yeah, guys, I do want to thank Anchor for sponsoring this video. Basically, they provided us with some wireless chargers to test out for this video, which allow you to charge your phone wirelessly and work faster than most wireless chargers out there. They have docks and they have like normal, just flat out stands, which work really great. And thankfully, we do have 2 of them to give away to you guys. All you have to do is go to the link down below in the description, check that out, and you can enter there to win one of these for your iPhone 8, Android device, S8, iPhone 10, whatever device you have, you can enter and you can win one of these charging docks. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. So which device is actually better? Well, the problem here comes down to the price right now. The iPhone 10 is available for about $1,100, while the S8 you can find for $700, $600, which is a huge difference when it comes to the fact that they both pretty much offer the same thing and have a lot of the same features. And yeah, I personally would choose the iPhone 10, but if both of these devices were the same price. So that's something to keep in mind. Just because the iPhone 10 is the latest and everyone's hyping it up doesn't mean it is the best device for you. You might like the S8 more even if you had both of them in your hand and had to choose. So I definitely recommend, do some more research, or hopefully you can use some of my advice here and choose the phone that's best for you without wasting any money. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it and it helped you in some way. But aside from that, if you have any specific questions or anything, you can reach out to me on Twitter at RMRDNL or at DarkGadgets, or you can comment down below in the comments and I'll help you there, or someone else will as well. So yeah, thanks for watching this video and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.